Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course titled Heat and Mass Transfer. Let us continue where we had left off last time. Today's lecture is titled Conduction Heat Transfer Part 3. So part 1 and part 2 we have already done. Let us do a very brief recap of what we have done in lecture number 3. If you recall, we had looked at the one-dimensional heat conduction equation which is given over here, but we had not derived it. So today is the time that we are going to derive it, and we also looked at some new concepts like given over here on the bottom left side of the energy generation term E dot gen. So this is what we had looked at last time. We solved the parabolic equation, we solved the ordinary differential equation to obtain this parabolic result which is given on the bottom left hand side over here. And finally, we tried to plot some very interesting curves which is again given on the bottom left side over here. So we did all this analysis without actually having derived the heat conduction equation. So if we think about it, unless we know how do we get those mathematical relations, it's not a very powerful tool in heat transfer or any other science or engineering subject. So with that ambition in mind, let us go ahead and try and see if we can derive this equation. So we will look at the simple case of one-dimensional heat conduction equation, and we will try to derive it for the plane wall case. So let me go ahead and draw the schematic that I am going to use to derive this particular equation, and before I derive it, let me write the final result that we will obtain over here. So our objective today is to figure out a way in which we can obtain this relation. So this is a partial differential equation and also known as the one-dimensional heat conduction equation. In order to derive it, we will use the differential approach. So let me draw the schematic for that. I'll first show the x-axis that we are going to use over here. So this is the x-axis. Over here I'll pick 2 points, and between them I'm going to draw a differential element. So if this distance is delta x and my point over here is x, then the right hand side point over here becomes x plus delta x. So on this x-axis we are actually representing distance. Now heat transfer is taking place across this differential element. So let me shade this differential element so that it becomes little bit more visible. And let us say heat transfer is taking place from the left toward the right hand side. So heat through conduction is entering this particular differential element over here, and I will write that the heat entering over here is Q dot. Now heat is also leaving this differential element from the right hand side, and this I will also write as Q dot. So I have a question over here. In this differential element, let me say if I represent it with this thickness over here, under what conditions the Q dot on the left side and the right side are going to be equal? Is it possible that they can actually be different as well? So in the general case, we will assume that they would be different. So I would use this subscript notation over here. On the left hand side, I will call it as Qx, and on the right hand side, I will call it Qx plus delta x. And the reason for using this particular notation is on the left hand side shown over here, we are focusing on this orange boundary, and on the right hand side we are focusing on this reddish boundary over here. Now, this particular differential element I can also draw in 3-dimensional space. So, let me go ahead and do that, so that the picture becomes little more clearer. Over here, this is my x-axis. So, what I am trying to say is the figure that I have drawn on the left hand side is the similar representation of this 3-dimensional figure. This particular differential element is shown on the right hand side as well. I can shade it over here also. So, both these differential elements are actually same. So, I can represent similar thing over here. So, heat is entering through this particular surface area, and this I can write as q dot x, and the reason for that is, if I look at this particular point, its location is x. This thickness is delta x, which means this particular point automatically becomes, the distance is x plus delta x, and of course, this I am representing on the x axis. Now, on the right hand side surface, heat transfer is taking place in this particular direction over here, and this I will show as x plus delta x. So, as you can clearly see, the figures on the right and left hand side are similar. Now, what is happening inside this particular case is that heat generation is also taking place, which means in this particular differential element there is certain amount of heat generation which is taking place, and that I can show on the left side as well. Let me put some dimensions in the other direction as well. So, this I will consider as the width W, and this will be the height over here, and this height is capital H, which means the cross section of this particular area over here I will take as A, where it is the product of W into H. So, if I am not mistaken, I think I have defined all these parameters. I think one parameter is remaining, that for this differential element itself, the volume of this particular differential element I can represent as delta V, and is going to be equal to delta x, which is its thickness, multiplied by the area A. So, we have to keep this colorful diagram in mind while we are trying to do the derivation for one-dimensional heat conduction equation. We will also understand what is the principle behind this particular derivation. So, the idea is that we are using one of the fundamental laws, like if you look in physics, there is a fundamental law of conservation of mass, conservation of momentum, it could be linear as well as angular, and conservation of energy. So, the last one is the conservation of energy, and that is what we will use over here. We will make help of the conservation of energy law and try and see if we can derive this differential equation given over here. For the sake of completion, let me also write one more thing, that all the areas considered in this particular derivation are actually equal. In a general case, they may or may not be equal, but over here, when I write this black equation at the bottom, what I am saying is that this face on the left hand side and this face on the right hand side both have the same area, which is generally true in a Cartesian coordinate, but we will see later in cylindrical and spherical coordinates this will actually not be true. I think this is what I had in mind for drawing this particular schematic, because drawing a good schematic will help us understand how to write the fundamental equations. Now, what I am going to do is, I am going to do an energy balance on this particular differential element delta V. In one very simple way in which I can write it, crudely speaking, I can simply say that in this particular differential element, which I can represent by this black circle over here. So, this whole thing is my differential element. This is the thing that I am focusing on. So, engineers usually like to do a case of isolation. So, we have a system around which we assume a system boundary, and then our whole focus is on that system. We forget everything about the surroundings. So, that is a very disciplined approach, and for that approach, let me go ahead and write the energy balance for this particular black zone, that whatever energy is coming in, which is E dot in, minus whatever energy is going out. In simple cases, both should be equal, E dot in equals to E dot out, but we will remember over here that energy generation is also taking place, which means I have to account for E dot gen as well. So, I will add that term E dot generation. So, again usually E dot in minus E dot out plus E dot generation turns out to be 0. But over here the temperature of the system can also increase or decrease, which means I have to take into account the energy storage term as well. So, I will write this whole thing is equal to energy stored. As you can probably guess, in that case where energy storage is not taking place, only 3 terms would be sufficient. Whatever is coming in, let us say if this room that I am standing in is my differential element, then whatever energy is coming in minus whatever is going out plus the generation term, that whole thing has to be conserved. If not, then the temperature of the room will actually rise. Now, let me recall with a very brief side note over here that this E I am using as energy or the change in energy or the rate of change of energy, and I will link it with heat transfer rate. So, if you remember from our thermodynamics, what exactly is E? So, we will figure that out in just a moment. Let me go back to that particular slide, and like I was giving that example of the room. So, I will just put some numbers over here. These are arbitrary numbers. Let us say energy coming in this particular element is 10 watts, energy going out is 8 watts, the energy which is generated is 3 watts. So, this information automatically tells me, if I do this particular arithmetic over here, that in total energy storage would be 5 watts. So, that is the use of this particular equation. It is very simple, but it has very deep consequences. So, in all branches of engineering, in almost all sciences, this very basic and simple law which people have observed is always honored by nature. So, this thing engineers are making use of, and this whole equation I can write once again. So, on the next page I am going to rewrite this thing in a slightly different notation, but making it more formal. So, let me quickly write it down once again. E dot in minus E dot out plus E dot generation is equals to E dot stored. And what do these dots represent on the top? If you remember from my first lecture, we can always convert the amount of heat transfer into the rate of heat transfer if we consider the effect of time. So, all these energy are rates, if I put a dot on top of that. So, the first term more formally I am going to write is E dot in is essentially the rate of heat conduction at x. So, this x I am talking about is the boundary x, minus the second term would be the rate of heat conduction at which place. So, when we are talking about E dot out, we go back over here, at which point is energy actually going out. So, if you see this circle that I am making on this particular point, this represents x plus delta x. So, I am going to write over here x plus delta x. The third term would be E dot gen. By just I will just write its definition. It is the rate of energy generation. E dot gen is the rate of energy generation. This whole thing will be equal to the right hand side, which is the rate of change of energy storage. And this hint I will give from over here. If you remember, the amount of energy change for a particular thing we had written as mCp delta T in our first lecture. So, we are going to make use of that for this fourth bracket over here. Now, let us try and see if we can write all these four brackets in terms of some variables. So, the first bracket actually becomes what is the rate of conduction at x. Let us go back to the previous slide. If I ask this question to the students, then I think the immediate answer will be that at x location the rate of heat conduction is q dot x. At x plus delta x location the rate of heat conduction is simply q dot x plus delta x. So, these 2 points we have already figured out. So, the first term becomes simply q dot x, second terms becomes q dot x plus delta x. See how fast these things are going when we have a full understanding of what we are trying to do. So, the third term is directly E dot gen, and what is the rate of change of energy storage? I will perhaps express it in this way, that the energy of the system, the rate of change of that. So, it is simply delta E, how much it changes divided by delta T. So, this is where what I wanted to explain a little bit about what is delta E. What is the energy of a system? I am standing in front of you and I ask this is a mass of body, what is its energy? So, I think we have all answered that question in thermodynamics. So, I can say I have some thermal energy inside me. If I start moving around, I will have kinetic energy. If I go to a hill station at a higher location, I will have potential energy. If somebody puts some charge on my body, which usually happens when I comb the hair, I think we have all experienced that the hair lifts up, that is because some electron exchange takes place. So, I have net positive or a net negative charge. So, I could have that electrical energy as well. I could have some magnetic energy as well. I also have lot of chemical energy, lot of biological energy. So, those things we can write over here. So, which means what I was saying just verbally over here, I can write it in this form and I can say, so this delta E is simply the difference of these two energies, the energy at state t and after some time t plus delta t. And what would the first term be? It would be all sort of energy at t plus delta t. So, U is, if you remember thermodynamics, our internal energy, then we have kinetic energy t plus delta t. Then I can write potential energy t plus delta t. Then I can write some more energy, maybe electrical energy at t plus delta t. I can also write magnetic energy and so on. So, this will be my left hand side bracket, sorry, this will be my first bracket. Then the same thing I will have again on the right hand on the next bracket. The only difference is that it will be at time t. So, I will write ut plus kinetic energy t plus potential energy t plus all sort of other terms. I think the system is having some issue, but please bear with us. The point I want to make over here, no matter how many energy terms we write in this particular expression, in this course our main focus is on heat transfer or the temperature related energy, which we all remember is the thermal energy or the internal energy because of the vibration of the atoms and molecules, which means the only way my energy according to this particular course can go up and down is if my temperature actually increases or decreases. That is one way, or if phase change takes place, which is not in my interest because that will damage my body. But in reality, if water becomes steam, its internal energy changes. If it goes to ice, then its internal energy changes again. So, I am going to cancel out all these terms which we are not considering, just because in this course the focus is mainly on the thermal aspects, which means I can do all this analysis over here and I can simply write at the end. So, I will just write that this is simply u t plus delta t minus u t. I will maybe write little bit upward, then there won't be a problem. Then it looks like this one I have already defined on the top over here. you can see this expression. So, what I can write it is this simply mass into specific heat C into temperature at the T plus delta T time. So, I will write that temperature at T plus delta T minus the temperature at time T. I think we will take a small break, and then we can go ahead and simplify it little bit more. How can I do that? If I go back to that particular slide over here, this black zone, if you remember, we have calculated both the areas on the two sides, we have calculated its volume as well. If somebody asks me what is the mass of this particular differential element, then I can simply say, if I know the volume of a particular object, I can just multiply it with its density and I can get the mass. So, m I will replace by this particular relationship, which is rho dV. So, let me go over here and express it as rho dV, and C I will retain like that, and then I write T plus delta T minus Tt. One more thing I can do is I can convert delta V into A dx. So, again I will write this term. I know it is getting little bit long, but we will get very interesting result at the end. So, just have little bit patience. We are going to get that differential equation which we have derived ourselves. So, that will be very satisfying. This is the last step in this particular case. So, I will just go ahead and circle this. So, this is the important point for the right hand side term. Now, let me go and put all these things together in this green equation over here. For that, I will use the next slide. Let me go over there. So, there was a term in that equation which was E dot gen, energy generation. So, if you remember, we have defined it earlier, it is simply, so energy generation for any object is given in terms of watts. So, energy generation I can convert into watts per meter cube by multiplying it by the differential volume. So, here the units turns out to be, this is watts per meter cube. So, small E dot is energy generation per unit volume, because I am multiplying it by volume. And I can again write volume in terms of volume, I can always write as A dx. So, this equation becomes E dot gen A dx. So, these things now I will plug in that original equation, which was this one, q dot x minus q dot x plus dx, plus over here we would have written this term E dot gen, but I will replace it with this term over here. So, this is what I am going to replace it with. So, what I get over here is E dot gen A delta x, and on the right hand side what we will get, we should have E dot storage, and energy storage we have got a very good expression in the previous slide. So, I will write it over here as, so the rate of change of the stored energy is turned out to be rho C A delta x, and the difference of temperature at 2 times T plus delta T minus temperature at time T, and because we are taking the rate of that, we have to divide it by delta T. So, we will remember by going back to the previous slide that denominator on the right hand side has a delta T over there. Now, this is starting to look like a partial differential equation. What we are going to do next is, I will divide this whole equation. So, let me write that, divide this whole equation by A delta x. Why are we dividing it? Because we are seeing those two common terms coming out over here. So, how will the first two terms, if I put them together, I will do two operations simultaneously. So, watch it carefully. I will divide it by A delta x also, and I will do the subtraction as well. So, let me see if I do it correctly. So, A comes out over here, because I have also pulled out the minus sign, then this thing becomes plus, which means this thing I can write like this. And because I pulled out the minus sign, the first term becomes a minus. And what else am I missing over here? I think this small delta x also have to account for, because I was dividing by this product over here. So, this I have to divide. Does it look okay? Now, this third term over here, which I am drawing a scroller below that, it just becomes a very neat term, E dot gen. And the thing on the right hand side, this last term over here, this turns out to be rho C and the difference of two temperatures, T plus delta T minus Tt divided by. Now, if you remember from our mathematics, if we start taking limits, what is going to happen to these two parameters, delta x and delta t? If I write the next line as that, let me take limits as delta x tends to 0 and delta t tends to 0. So, if you remember from our introductory mathematics knowledge, it will turn out to be into a differential operator, right, which means this first term over here, look what happens to that if I take the limit. So, I will write it on the right hand side on the top. So, minus 1 by a retains as it is, and what happens to this particular term is that it becomes del q dot by del x. I hope you are able to figure out that how did we write this long difference of two delta q's divided by delta x as del q by del x. This is basic differential equation, and the second term is retained like that. What happens to the third term? Do we see the same thing happening over there? So, answer is yes. So, it will simply become del t by del t. So, look how simplified the equation has become. Can we do it even more simplification? So, the answer is yes, if we recall the Fourier's law. So, if I ask you what was Fourier's law, because why am I interested in Fourier's law? Because this q dot I can see over here, and from Fourier's law I remember q dot was minus Ka del t by del x. Aha. Now, is there a way I can combine these two equations together? What will happen? This minus sign over here, which is represented by this dot, will get cancelled with that one. Will this area A be cancelled by this area A? So, let me ask that question to you, that can I take this area from inside the bracket outside? So, the answer is yes, if we go to the previous two slides back, and we have written over here. If you see at the bottom right over here where I am drawing a circle, that all areas we have assumed are same. So, if area is constant, it does not vary with x, then when I am having this differential term which will be with x over here, then I can definitely take area out, and once it comes outside, numerator area, denominator area, both will get cancelled. Minus sign also gets cancelled. So, let me write what will happen over here. It will just remain this operator over here, del by del x, and instead of q dot, what will be inside? Will be k del t by del x, which let me highlight it so that it becomes little bit clear. Let me pick another color, maybe light blue. So, what I am writing over here are these two things. Okay. Then the next term remains as it is, E dot gen, and the last term is rho C del t by del t. So, let me put a border around this particular equation, because we have spent lot of time, almost 15-20 minutes figuring it out, and let us go back to the original slide where we wanted to derive this particular equation. Look, this is the same equation that we wanted to derive. So, let us it's a very good feeling now that from basic physics first principles we have figured out using mathematics and certain assumptions that what is going to be the form of the one dimension heat conduction equation. So, let us pause for a minute and now let us connect it with the previous lecture. If you remember, in previous lecture, lecture number 3, we have looked at lot of plots, we have looked at the parabolic profile, we have tried to solve it as well. But we never asked the question that where did the original equation come from. So, now we have answered in lecture number 4 that equation has come from simply the energy balance of that differential element. See how beautiful the mathematics and physics, when it come together, it becomes. We are just doing energy balance and applying some mathematical tools, and we are able to get this particular relation over here. So, I may ask another question, that is this sort of an analysis only true for plane slab? Can we also do it for cylinders? The answer is of course yes. Let us try and do some part of it for plane cylinder as well. So, what I am trying to ask the question is, if we have, instead of a plane wall, if we have a differential element in a cylindrical form like shown over here, or I will draw it again in 2-dimensional form as just simply 2 circles over here. And how are these circles represented? The inner radius is r, and this is the same differential element. I will again give it some color over here. This is the same differential element. Let us go back and compare over here. Whatever was given in this particular black zone, if you remember this dotted element over here. So, there is no difference between them except that it is a rectangular slab in this particular case, and it is going to be an annular pipe in this particular case, because this is a cylindrical coordinate system over here. And we may even extend it, we may even say that can we do it for the spherical case as well. So, if I draw a 3-dimensional sphere over here and I draw 2 of them together, so this particular shell is also a differential element. So, differential element we can have in various forms. We can have in Cartesian form, in cylindrical form, in spherical form over here. And how will the let us do some geometrical analysis on the cylindrical first, then we will go to the spherical case. So, what will we assume is the thickness of this particular cylindrical element. Earlier on we have assumed it was delta x. Over here, because we are working in the radial direction, I will make it as delta r. So, this thickness is delta r, which means the inner radius, if it is r, the outer radius I can clearly write this radius becomes r plus delta r. So, I am just doing an analogous analysis. If the q dot over here on this side of the surface, I can write it as q dot r, q dot r. How can I write on the outer side? This q dot I will write it as q dot r plus delta r, and the same thing we can do for radial case also. This becomes q dot r, over here it becomes q dot r plus delta r, as long as this radius is r and this thickness over here is delta r. So, it turns out to be everything is kind of analogous. So, it comes out beautifully. All we need to do is write again the energy balance equation. So, over here E dot in, E dot out plus E dot generation is equals to E dot stored, and this we can do for the cylindrical case as well, and we can do for the spherical case as well. So, this part I am leaving for the audience to do themselves, because the analysis is very similar and I am pretty sure that you will be able to do it. Let me just go ahead and write the final result that we will be obtaining over here. So, in the case of cylindrical coordinates, very nice equation we will be able to get, and that equation will look something like this. And this equation is for the cylindrical case. And let me highlight 1 or 2 points over here, so that it becomes very clear to all the audience members. This R, let me write with a different color, and I will explain the reason for that in just a little while. And let me go ahead and write the equation for the spherical one as well. The spherical case, the result will turn out to be and here again let me go ahead and write this particular term in red color. And just for the sake of completion, let me again write that equation that we have already obtained for the plane case. So, this is the plane wall equation which we have already obtained in the previous slide. So, now let me ask you a very interesting question. You can see three blue equations on this particular screen. The top one is for plane wall, that is equation number 1. Equation number 2 is for the cylindrical case. Equation number 3 is for the spherical case. So, if I were little bit observant, can I say by looking at these three equations that they are kind of similar? Let us look at them once again, and now we can find out the reason why I have made some of these R's as red. If we ignore these R's, then I would like to make the claim that the equations is almost identical, which means when we go from plane to cylindrical, we add the R power 1, one in denominator, one in numerator. What I mean by that is, let me highlight over here, this R we are adding in the denominator, this R we are adding in the numerator. When we go to the spherical case, we are adding a R square in the denominator and R square in the numerator. So, this is a very beautiful result that we have obtained over here, and it is very interesting to see this kind of derivation giving us these results. Now, let us go ahead and look how do we make application of this particular relation that we have obtained, and in particular our focus will be on the first equation over here, which I am highlighting in orange over here, the plane wall equation, because it is the easiest one to understand, and let us try and play around with it and try to see that are there some ways in which we can get even deeper understanding of that particular equation. So, again very quickly I will rewrite that equation. So, the thing I want to do now is consider different conditions under which I am going to study this particular equation. It is like when some complicated thing is there, then I will break it down into smaller and simple cases, and then try to analyze those simple cases first, and then try to see what the complicated picture looks like. So, those cases I will call as conditions. So, let me consider three conditions. So, the condition number 1 will be the simplest one. So, we will start always with the simple problem first and then make it more and more complicated. So, condition number 1. In condition number 1, I will make three assumptions. The first one is that heat transfer is taking place under steady state. The second condition is that there is no energy generation taking place. And the third case, I am going to assume that the thermal conductivity is a constant value. In real life, actually I will write over here, thermal conductivity can be a function of many things, amongst them most predominantly temperature. For instance, if the temperature of copper or water or wood changes, then its thermal conductivity definitely changes. So, in order to make our life simple and to consider the first case, we are going to make these three assumptions. Now, let us try and see that for the plane wall case, if I take this top equation and apply these three conditions, what equation will I get? According to my understanding, because of this assumption number 2, I will be able to neglect this second term, E dot gen is 0. Because the first condition, steady state, nothing changes with time. That is what steady state means, that del of del T of any parameter is 0. I can write volume or pressure or energy or mass or momentum, anything over there. Del of that thing with time is 0. There is no change. So, which means the temperature also not changing, I can make it 0. The third assumption I have written, K is constant. What does that mean? If I see a blue arrow, it means clearly I can take it outside the bracket. If it is a constant, it won't be bothered with the differential operator. So, what I end up getting is K del square T. Now, I can write as d square T, because there is no other parameter, only varying with x. D square T del x square is equals to 0, which means I can just remove this K from over here, and what I get is a very simplified this condition number 1. What I want to do now is draw certain cases. So, you can remember for last 2 lectures I am drawing in the plane wall certain cases, because this graphical representation actually gives very good idea of what we are talking about in terms of the complicated equation. So, it is very easy to visualize those. So, del square T del x square equals to 0. So, this from our ODE background, ordinary differential equation, we can simply say the solution would be a linear line, as it will be a line, a straight line, and what we can write it something like that we will get Tx will be simply a function of x. And like in our case, we will put 2 boundary conditions over here. The left side temperature I always assume is T1, right hand side temperature I assume is T2, which means this relationship I can, by applying these 2 boundary conditions, I can get the value of C1, C2. If you recall, this we have done in our previous lecture. So, we will get something like this. So, this I will highlight in green color. So, this green equation over here is the solution of this particular heat conduction equation under the condition number 1, which means wherever an engineer can find a plane wall which is at steady state, in which no heat generation is taking place, and the thermal conductivity of that material does not change significantly with temperature, that engineer, he or she can directly predict that the temperature profile inside that wall would be a straight line. It would be a linear slope like this, or what other straight lines are possible over here, it can also be like this, which means it is not necessary that T1 always has to be greater than T2, it can also be less over here. So, using some color over here, if T1 is greater than T2, so we all will immediately tell that Q dot will go in this particular direction. In this case over here, if T2 is greater than T1, we can immediately figure out that Q dot will be in this particular direction. Let me ask you another question. Is there another straight line which is possible in the plane, wall plane, where the temperature profile is neither increasing nor decreasing? So, I think you get that hint. In that particular case, the temperature can actually be uniform throughout. Sorry. What it means is T1 is equal to T2 over here. This is also a straight line. So, these are the type of temperature profiles we can expect if the condition 1 is actually met. Now, what we are going to do? We are going to look at the second condition. In the second condition, I hope everyone is able to understand the results of this first condition. So, then I will go to the second condition. So, I will write over here, or maybe I will start on the new slide. Let me go to the next slide over here. Now, over here I am going to write condition number 2 or case number 2, whatever we want to call it. So, in this case I will make only 2 assumptions. In condition 1 I had made 3 assumptions. Over here I will just make 2 assumptions. The first one is again that it is a steady state, and that automatically tells me that del of del T is 0. Any property does not change with time. And the second assumption I am going to make is that K is constant. Now, if you go back and look at the heat transfer equation over here, this is the general heat transfer equation. If I make 2 assumptions, then I think everyone can remember the right hand side will become 0, because del T by del T will be 0. So, what I will be left off with is K del square T del x square plus E dot gen will remain, because that I have not assumed is 0. So, this is the simplified thing that I will get under condition number 2 or case number 2. And again, many of you may remember that last time we have actually solved it in lecture number 3, and we got the solution for this under the condition, boundary conditions of left side temperature is T1, right hand side temperature is T2. If I make these two boundary conditions, then I am able to solve this ODE, and what I get is a parabolic equation which looks something like this. I hope you all remember, because we have done it in just the last lecture. And if you also remember, we had looked at this kind of a temperature profile which looks like a parabola over here. So, again I will ask this question to the audience members, that what are the different type of parabolas? Do not worry about the numerical value, just look at the qualitative picture, that what are the different type of parabolas we can obtain. So, first case is T1 is greater than T2. So, let me reverse that. I will make T1 less than T2. So, what happens in this case? Again it will be a parabola, but it will go somewhere over here. And the immediate thing you can remember again from last lecture is that we can predict also the location of the maximum temperature point. Over here is close to the hotter point, here again it is close to the hotter point. I can even draw the direction of heat transfer. If I have to ask you that in what direction heat transfer is taking place inside the wall A, which is the left hand side, and wall B, just by looking at temperature profile in steady state condition, can I predict where the heat transfer is going? So, answer is yes, always an engineer can predict by looking at the temperature gradient. The heat always flow from higher temperature to lower temperature, which means over here, if I draw this boundary over here, in this zone we can say Q dot is in this direction, and in all the remaining one over here, Q dot is in this direction. The same thing we can do over here on the wall B. On the left hand side, Q dot is in this direction, which incidentally is the negative direction, because we usually show X as positive in the right hand side direction, and then this is Q dot over here. So, we are getting very interesting result. We can perhaps also draw another case where both the temperatures are same. So, T1 is same as T2, and this we have already done before. So, this looks something like this. Peak temperature will be here. So, I can draw a zone over here. On the left side of the zone, all the heat transfer is towards the left. On the right side of the zone, all the heat transfer is towards the right. I hope we are all able to figure out what is going on over here. Now, let me try to ask an interesting question. What happens in this condition number 2 when E dot gen is actually a negative number? So, I will ask that question to the audience members. Can energy generation actually be negative? Of course, it can be negative, because if you remember, under what conditions we told that it is actually positive. One condition we told that the energy is being generated because of metabolism inside the body. Another condition we have told is if there is some current flowing through a conductor, so a lot of joule heating is taking place, so the temperature is rising. If some chemical reaction is taking place or nuclear reaction is taking place, so then heat will be released, the temperature will be rise inside that particular body. So, there is a hint in that can the chemical reaction be actually not exothermic, which gives away heat, but endothermic. And that is where the answer is that yes, under certain conditions E generation can be negative, which means it is a special type of wall in which reaction is taking place, but not such a reaction of combustion or ignition where the temperature will rise, but rather some other reaction. तो स्लाइड से ही स्टार्ट करिएगा. So, let us see what happens when E dot gen is negative. In this case, what we would expect is that some sort of cooling should take place inside the wall. Let us go to the next slide. Over here I have tried to draw some temperature profiles. On the left hand side, what we have shown in red color over here. So, these two cases, this one and this one would correspond to when E dot gen is positive, which is what we have been doing so far. And on the right hand side, this particular case and this case, we will try and see what happens when the E dot gen is negative, which means the whole wall is actually trying to absorb heat from the surrounding. So, let us see how the temperature profile in that case may look like. So, if we concentrate on the left side, we have taken two conditions. Both the temperatures are 20 degrees on the side, and it turns out in the middle, if you remember, this was the case where E dot gen was a positive number. We have done earlier 160 watts per meter cube. So, in the middle, peak temperature was obtained, and that was 40 degrees centigrade. Now, what happens if we do the calculation for the negative case? It turns out here we get a dip in temperature, and look what this temperature minima value is. So, we got a corresponding symmetry kind of a thing going on between these two cases of the positive energy generation and the negative energy generation case. So, I hope this thing is clear to everyone. For illustration, we have another curve which is given at the bottom left side if we look at it. So, here the temperature on the two sides we have taken not as same. So, one is higher 50 degree, another one is lower, and this one we have already done earlier. The shape of the temperature profile still remains as parabola, but as we can see, it has now shifted towards the left. And if we recall, this distance we have also calculated, and it had turned out to be 0.31 meters approximately over here. So, if we try and see for the same case where the temperatures are not same, but negative energy generation is taking place, in this case we are expecting that there should be a dip in temperature, and we have done that calculation, and it looks like that dip will take place something like this. So, let me redraw it. So, instead of a peak, we are getting a minima over here, and if we calculate this minima value just by solving that particular equation, it simply turns out to be equal to 12.2 degrees centigrade. Now, is there a link between these two numbers? I think you can observe, just like this 40 degree was 20 degree higher than this temperature over here. So, this temperature rise was 20 degrees, and a similar temperature dip over here was also 20 degrees. And the same thing we can see with these two numbers as well, that there is a 7.8 degree rise compared to 50 degree over here, and if you see over here, there is a 7.8 degree dip from the minima over here. So, it turns out in nature we can change the sign from positive to negative, and we can get very interesting results. So, this is something that we had looked at for condition number 2, where steady state we have assumed and k equals to constant we have assumed. Let us move on to condition number 3, which is also very interesting, although it is little complicated. So, in that one we will try and see if we are able to actually solve this analytically, or as we will learn in later chapters that some higher order solutions are actually needed for this. So, in this particular case, the only condition that I am assuming is that k is constant. If I take that condition, so my equation simplifies to this. So, these two terms are there because I am not considering energy generation to be 0, as well as I am not considering steady state. So, how do we solve this? So, to be honest, it is a very difficult process to solve it, but we will go ahead and do that in the subsequent chapters. Over here, I will just mention that what are some of the ways that are available to solve it. You may notice that this has now become a partial differential equation because two variables are involved, one is x and one is time. Until now, all equations that we had solved earlier were ODEs, because they were all equations which were just a function of x. So, in order to solve this type of a PDE, we will use some advanced methods like Laplace transform. We can also use separation of variables, and there are some numerical methods also available to us, like finite difference method and finite element method. So, it is beyond the scope of this particular chapter to solve it, but I will show graphically, because the results for this transient case turn out to be very interesting. So, very quickly I will do this thing. So, let us assume that the whole wall initially is at 20 degrees centigrade, and then we start heating on both of the sides in such a way that the temperature of the sides we heat so much that after some time it has to reach 40 degree on both sides, and then we allow it to reach steady state. So, in that particular case the final solution should be like this, because initially the wall was at 20 degree, finally it will reach 40 degrees. What will happen in between? So, the wall is going to experience heating from two sides and the temperature inside should rise, and that is what all these equations will give us the solution. So, these will be analytical and numerical solution, but for now we are not going in that direction. Let us see, the temperature will rise in perhaps such a way over here on both the left and right side. The temperature will gradually rise, then it may rise little bit more like this, then little bit more, then it will keep on rising, and ultimately it will start appearing like this. So, what we have drawn over here are the temperature profile as a function of time. So, in this direction time is actually increasing, and very quickly I can give another example where instead of having 20 degrees on both sides, or rather I will keep 20 degree on both sides, but we are heating it in such a way that we are heating it more on the left side and little bit less on the right hand side. So, that eventually we will have 60 degrees over here and 40 degree over here. So, this is transient case 1, and this one I am drawing over here is transient case 2. So, over here what happens is the same kind of phenomena will take place. Here it will rise little bit more on the left side than on the right side. So, some sort of a non-symmetrical solution we will obtain over here, and towards the end these lines will converge, and again all these temperature profiles are as a function of time. So, this I have shown over here just for illustration point, that for solving the 1D plane equation we can also consider different type of conditions. So, we have looked at 3 conditions over here. The first condition was very simple, in which the linear slope was being observed. In the second case we are getting the parabolic curve, and in the third case we are getting several temperature profiles as a function of time. So, it is increasing with time. So, with that we come to the summary of this particular lecture. So, today we have done the derivation of the one dimension heat conduction equation, and we did it for the plane wall case, which means in Cartesian coordinates we use the variable x. We did not do the derivation for the cylindrical case and the spherical case, but we looked at the results for that, and after looking at this particular derivations we looked at various conditions under which it can be simplified. So, next lecture we will continue from where we have left off, and we will try and see various other boundary conditions, initial conditions, as well as the solutions for many of these particular cases. With that I finish this particular lecture. Thank you.